Mark, where are you? Which city do you live in?
I'm in New York, which is like the epicenter of all this madness at the moment.
What's going on outside? Have you ventured out?
Nothing. I haven't been outside in about 6 or 7 days. I live in Manhattan, so it's pretty wild here.
I mean, the wife and I, we have tons of food stocked up, and we're just like, why risk anything?
Yeah,
Just stay put.
yeah. I mean, I live in London, and I just went for a quick walk through the park just to get out, and it's like you feel like you're in a computer game. It's like Pac-Man, where you see someone coming down the path towards you,
And you just like veer off.
and you kind of like you walk onto the grass because you think this person could be a vector for illness.
Yeah.
And if someone bumps into you, it's like, it's infuriating. But it's amazing how quickly the norms have fallen away.
Yeah, it's weird. I've never been a paranoid person in my life, and uh, in fact, I've always been quite the opposite. I've been like very comfortable with risk, and this thing is, I mean, it's like I go downstairs and get packages from my doorman, and I'm like, should I disinfect the boxes? Like, should I disinfect what's in the boxes? Like, I suddenly start like feeling OCD about a lot of things, and I just have to remind myself, like, dude, you're gonna be fine. Just wash your hands, get on with it. My wife and I, we were actually in California, the first week of March, and then we got back. And I had been reading about it a lot in California and was starting to get concerned. But out in California, it's so big, it's so wide open. Like you just sit in your car all day, you know. And then the first night we came back to New York, we actually went down to a restaurant near our place, and it was packed. And I was looking around, I'm like, we're fucked. Like, this city is totally fucked. Like, if people are still crowding into bars and restaurants like this, like, and so the next day we went to the grocery store and just bought like an insane, like, I've never bought so much crap before. And yeah, I mean, other than a couple small trips, like, that's been it. We've been here ever since.
Yeah. Are your wife and yourself driving each other mad?
No, not really. I mean, we're fortunate in that we both work from home, so this isn't super new to us. But we're both starting to feel a little bit stir crazy, which I don't know if you guys say that in Britain,
Yeah,
but yeah,
sure do. Yeah.
yeah, just like got to get out, got to go do something, like got to see another human being. But it doesn't make sense. I was actually talking to the wife this morning. I'm like, maybe I can like just go out and walk around for for an hour. And she's like looking at me like, do you really think you want to do that? Like, why risk it? I don't know. It's like, it's so, if we were in any other city, where you have all this space and yards and parks and everything, it's like, yeah, go out and do it. But in New York, it's just so crowded and so dense and so dirty that it's like, why, there's no point in risking that.
Yeah. I mean, I live alone, and I think I've got quite profound cabin fever at the moment.
Yeah.
It's reached the point where I think if a woman walks past my window, I'm ready to propose.
Yeah, you're like hand on window. It's like Titanic, like come back.
Honestly, and anyone at this stage, it's like all previous criteria and pickiness, forget it. Anyone, looks,
hey,
personality.
maybe that will be maybe like because it's. I feel like before this there was like an epidemic of pickiness in the dating world of people matching 20 other people on Tinder. So it's like nobody's ever good enough. Maybe this will reverse that. Maybe it's like, you know what? Fuck it. Anybody with two legs.
Yeah, I need my kind of like World War II sweetheart.
There you go.
Yeah, I just keep peering out the window for signs of any female form, but everyone's isolated.
It's rough, man. It's rough, man.
I mean, I suppose that, as someone who's made a career trying to train us not to over worry, and not to give too much of a fuck, how much of a fuck are you giving at the moment?
A lot. And it's funny because the interviews I've been doing recently, people keep bringing this up. They're like, "Oh, you're the not give a fuck guy." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but it's really what the book is about is it's about saving your fucks and prioritizing them correctly." And um, from the beginning, I was sending out newsletters to my readers saying like, "Look, you guys know me. I'm not the type of person who freaks out about things. I'm usually the one saying, don't believe the media hype, like don't buy into all the drama and everything." Um, but this thing scares me, and I think this is a couple of weeks ago. I said I think this is like a generation defining event, and it's one of those events that the only other event in my life that I can even compare it to, I think, is probably 9/11, where it's like 20 years from now, people are going to be like, "Oh, where were you when coronavirus happened? Where did you quarantine? What was that like?" Um, and so it's you start having to ask yourself, it's like, how do you want to be able to answer these questions for the rest of your life? Like, were you the person who was like still like, one night at the pub won't kill anybody, you know, no, like, but actually, literally, it might kill people. So it's you don't you want to be able to make the right decisions for yourself.
So in terms of storing up your fucks, if you've got a kind of the fuck bank, not to overplay them, you've built up your credit now. What are you spending I guess your mental space on, your nervous energy? Where's that going?
I mean, a lot of it is going. I certainly feel a certain amount of responsibility right now because I do have a large audience. I do have a lot of readers, and there is a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff. So I'm getting tons of emails every day, and I'm writing to people each week. I'm trying to avoid giving expert advice or opinions, but I'm trying to kind of just like sort through the BS for people, and I feel a certain, I guess, responsibility to do that because of the size of the audience. On a more personal level, what I've found is just I have not had so many phone calls with friends and family. I have not. I'm texting with people I haven't texted with in years. I'm talking to my parents more than I have in probably 10 years. And it's, some of that's conscious, some of that is like a conscious, like worrying. But I've noticed too, it's just like that's the first thing you miss in this whole experience. It's like like you said, every woman who walks past the window. It's like I would kill to have a beer with a friend right now. And we're only like 10 days into this. So it's that the relationship piece is definitely something that's come to the fore pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's interesting. The last podcast we did of the series was called Positive Thinking for Unlucky People, and we were looking like positive thinking is generally like for the sake of it is a load of rubbish, as I'm sure you would, well, as I know you've written about. But there's one type of positive thinking which makes a difference, which is if you can say this bad thing is happening to me, I'm not going to fight it, I'm not going to pretend it isn't, but I can find some nugget of meaning in there. So I might have this disease, but it's allowed me to kind of reconnect with friends, and it's allowed me to kind of reevaluate what's important to me, and I've gained something from this. A psychologist at UCLA was saying that finding that meaning is enough to improve your immune system, and she'd seen it with AIDS and then cancer patients. It has a physiological effect on your body. So for me, it's about how can you say, okay, this is awful. I'm stuck at home. We're terrified. We all know people who are ill. God forbid anyone we know gets really ill. But the meaning that's come out of it for me so far has been I've spoken to people who I love but haven't really spoken to for about a year or so. and
Yeah.
that's the meaning so far.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with that, and I agree that you have to actively seek that meaning out. It's easy for us to just lay in bed and wallow and be like, this is horrible, I can't believe it, but you've got to find something to hold on to.
What are what have been your kind of either coping mechanisms or kind of what are the kind of traits you're trying to instill in your own thinking?
Um, it's I'm trying to use this as an opportunity. You know, Anytime our life gets completely like bamboozled like this, um, the thing that is part of what is so uncomfortable about it is that it kind of interrupts all of our patterns. It interrupts our morning routine. It interrupts our day-to-day job. It interrupts um, where we go, who we see, and it also interrupts a lot of our bad patterns. Uh, maybe we go out too much. Maybe we're spending a little bit too much money on stupid things. Maybe we're eating too much. Maybe we're drinking too much. And in my case, so I always see situations like this. They're a sword that cuts both ways. Like they interrupt a lot of the good patterns in our life and cause a lot of stress, but they can also interrupt a lot of the bad patterns. And in that space where they interrupt the bad patterns, like there's an opportunity to uh, replace those patterns and replace those habits with something a little bit better. So for me in particular, especially as somebody who lives in New York, like New York is, uh, I mean, that you could just eat at amazing restaurants and drink incredible cocktails 365 nights a year, and you would like never go to the same place twice. And so I've developed in terms of like my physical health. I've probably the last 3 years or so is probably like the least healthy I've been physically, and it's been a goal of mine for probably like the last 6 or 8 months to like start getting that. And I was starting to do some things to try to like lose some weight and eat healthier or whatever. But then this happened, and my wife and I were like, all right, this is it. Like we're gonna stock up on food. It's like only gonna be healthy food, fruits, veggies, and meat. Um, we're gonna cook at home. Like we have to cook at home every day now. And so there's really no choice. And so that's part of the stress for me, is that I don't get like my weekly whiskey, or my favorite burger anymore. But it's actually been really great in that way. Like we're just developing better habits and patterns at home in terms of like basic day-to-day choices. So that's kind of what I try to focus on.
And I mean, everyone loves tips. I mean, if nothing else, they make for a good listicle. Um, what, if you were to try and give people who are perhaps struggling at the moment, 3 kind of thoughts to hold on to or tips or something like that, what would spring to mind?
Well, I think the opportunity to replace habits is one. I think one is this is also an opportunity to reevaluate what you're giving a fuck about in your life and whether it deserves it or not. One of the things I wrote about in Subtle Art was that it's incredibly difficult to really know how valuable something is in your life until it's removed. And what I find is, situations like this there are many things that you realize you took for granted, say relationships, family members. You're like, wow, I really, really miss that person. And I didn't realize it until I couldn't see them anymore. But then there's many things in your life too that you thought was important, and it turns out it's not. And I think the third thing, I guess the biggest thing I'm struggling with myself uh, is there's just so much fear and uncertainty right now. Uh, I think there's a lot of just, I call it background stress. So it's not like I have a deadline coming up or I have like a publisher yelling at me or something. It's just this 24/7 background stress of like what the hell is going to happen? How bad is this going to get essentially? Um, and for me, I'm trying to practice embracing that uncertainty as much as I can. Trying to not avoid it, bury myself in video games or something, Netflix. I mean, there's a lot of video games and Netflix going on. Don't get me wrong, but it's. I come from a bit of a Buddhist background, and so I one thing I believe very deeply is that uh, that sort of uncertainty and stress. It's not. It's running away from it always makes it worse. The best thing you can do is just learn to sit with it and become comfortable with it. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do. And it's 90% of the time I fail miserably at that. But there are that sweet 10 minutes each day where I like feel very equanimous and like, we're gonna make it. Humanity's gonna make it. We've been through worse. Um, it's just a few months. Like we're gonna be fine.
Yeah, those things are always great in theory, aren't they? But when you sit and meditate, and then the thoughts they just sort of hit you, and sometimes I don't know. I find it very hard. Like sometimes the thoughts don't trigger you, and sometimes they do. Sometimes you kind of think it's going to be okay, and other times it feels so suffocating that how's this going to end? When's it going to end? Can I deal with this for 12 months?
Yeah, yeah. I really hope it's not 12 months. uh, I think I'm mentally prepared for like 2 or 3, 4 if I really had to. Um, I think if this got to be like, if we got to like September and this was still going on, I think that's when you would really start to see kind of a mental health crisis emerge of people saying, you know what, fuck this. I'll get sick and just like getting on with it. And at that point, it's like, who can blame them?
Yeah. I mean, I feel that already after 10 days. It's
I
like
know. I know.
I've got like such bad cabin. It's like I kind of think like, if the woman's going to walk past my window, who would I be willing to risk my health for to go on a date with now? It's like it's like loneliness versus death. It's already a fine balance. I mean, I know Trump's looking at the economy versus genocide.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's I mean, if you think about it, it is really a perfect recipe for depression. Uh, you're indoors all day, every day. You're not exercising. You're not. A lot of people. I mean, a lot of people are working, but a lot of people are not working. They have nothing to do all day, and then you have no physical contact with people. And so it's like if you wanted a recipe of like how to make a lot of people depressed very quickly, this is it.
And I guess for a lot of people, like some of us are familiar with those feelings already.
Yes.
And it's like, oh God, here we go again. It's like, when you're busy you can keep those demons at bay. But, I've worked at home enough writing books and stuff to know that too much time alone sees literally the serotonin just goes down like a battery. But for a lot of people, I think, who've never really had to work from home or had this, they're going to be very new feelings for them. They're going to think, well, what is this kind of listlessness? What is this anxiety? I've never had it before. And I think one of the hardest things with mental health is if you've never had it before, you don't know what the fuck it is.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel myself. It's funny because I was actually telling my wife this morning. This morning, I had a really hard time getting out of bed, and I told her this morning. I said, I feel I've struggled with depression throughout my life, and I said, like, I feel like my depression meter is at like 20% right now. I feel it beginning, and it sucks. It really sucks. But I agree, because I've gone through it numerous times throughout my life. I know it's going to be okay. I can come out the other end. It's, I know how to respond to it essentially. But yeah, for people who've never dealt with that, like it's a scary thing.
Let's have a depression off at the moment. So, how long did it take you to get out of bed this morning?
Oof. This morning was bad, man.
Yeah,
Today was like actually the worst.
Don't sugarcoat this. How long did it take?
Almost 2 hours, but it's apples to oranges because I mean I'm married, so my wife and I, when we end up just kind of like bumming, like being lazy together, you know. So it's like if it wasn't for her, it probably would have been like an hour. But then she was kind of in the same spot. So we were like, can't we just stay here all day? And then it's, we're quarantined. So yeah, we actually can stay there all day.
Okay, well, I'm gonna match that. Mine was 2 hours from alarm clock to getting out of bed was 2 hours today as well.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, a lot of people have been saying they've been having the same problem. I think a lot of it is just straight up accountability. Honestly, part of what got me up was this interview. I hate to say it. I had 3 interviews today. The other 2 canceled or rescheduled. Like that's the other problem too. Is I've got this book. I've got an audiobook coming out tomorrow, and I've got this. I've probably scheduled, 15, 20 interviews over the course of 2 weeks. I'd say half of them have canceled. A lot of like the publicity shoots and stuff that we had planned canceled. I was supposed to go out to Audible's headquarters and do a bunch of like video shoots and stuff there. That was canceled. So it's you start to reach a point where it's like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
Why bother?
How's your appetite?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I have a tendency to overeating has been a coping mechanism for me in the past. And I've been really good about not doing that. That's kind of like the food piece is like my big success from these last few weeks. If this ended tomorrow, I would come out of this saying like, yeah, that really sucked, but I really got my eating in order. I've lost some weight. It's been really good. Yeah, the problem is I've got about 8 or 9 bottles of wine that are like calling my name each night, and I've been trying to avoid them, but because I know it's like once you pop one, it's gonna instantly become like a nightly thing. So that I'm trying to like. I don't want to mess with that too. I've had a rule throughout my life, which is like don't drink alone at home. Like that's just a line that I don't cross. And so I'm trying to hold that barrier.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I haven't drunk at home alone, but I've been channeling mine into dark chocolate. My chocolate consumption has just gone off the charts. I'm like a kind of jilted girlfriend in, I feel like Bridget Jones or something at the moment. I'm just mainlining chocolate.
And staring out the window at women who walk by.
That's not sad, is it?
This is rough, man. This is rough.
This is what globalization's brought us.
It was worth it, right? Tell me it was worth it.
Yeah. I miss the Cold War. I mean, at least nuclear annihilation seemed kind of quick.
Yeah, it's like, and you can't really do anything about it. Honestly, so there's been this meme that's going around, and it's saying like your grandfather stormed Normandy. You can sit on a couch for a month, or like something like that, And it's really funny. It's really clever. It kind of puts things in perspective. But, when you really think about it, like actually the most painful thing for this generation, like for our culture today, like if you could think of the most painful thing for us to go through, it would be an enforced lack of stimulation for a long period of time. Uh, like this, it's just this deprivation, like we're so used to, especially those of us who like live in London or New York, like you're so used to just being able to have anything you want whenever. Um, that removing all of that is like there, it's a certain sort of like psychological warfare in a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, I also think like our grandfathers that they would have gone off with valor in a uniform with their friends with camaraderie. Okay, there might have been life changing
Yeah.
illness, injury, and PTSD, but and they had a visible enemy.
Yeah.
What do we get? We can't even. I mean, you're
We can't even we can't even agree on what we should do.
and your Normandy. Your kind of D-Day is that you've not opened your wine yet.
Yes.
You're going to get a Purple Heart for that.
We will fight them in the fridge. We will fight them on the counters. We will fight them at the kitchen table. Yeah, right. It's and I mean the internet is an interesting facet of this too, because we are we're so aware, like I'm aware of like almost every country's individual strategy and approach to this, and like some cultures are handling it better than others, and like there's even statistical aberrations in certain countries, like a bunch of young people are dying in France for some reason, and but it's super interesting, but at the same time it removes that potential for solidarity that I think something like World War II creates. Because you get, I mean, we've had like this nice little reversal between our two countries, in that 2 weeks ago Boris Johnson's getting on TV saying like, no, we're just let them out, let them all get infected, it'll be fine, and Donald Trump is, for the first time in his entire presidency, like actually freaked out about something and telling people to stay home, and then 2 days ago your prime minister gets on TV is like, no, just kidding. Like, go home, stay home. This is really serious. And Donald Trump's like, yeah, I think by Easter we can go back to work. And it's just the complete lack of consistency, both within the leaders themselves, but also between world leaders. And then it's maddening at some point. And at least here in the U.S., you've got it's turning, like everything, it's turning into a partisan thing, where people on the right think this whole thing's overblown, and the media's exaggerating to scare people, and people on the left think Armageddon is coming, and they're like they're like buying guns for the first time in their lives, and it's madness.
do you know people who've gone out and bought guns?
I don't personally, but I grew up in Texas, and one of my friends in Texas told me, he's a gun owner. He's like lived in Texas. He's like a good old Texas boy. And he told me, he's like, I've had more liberal friends come up and ask me about guns in the last 2 weeks than like the rest of my life combined. So yeah, it's a weird time here for sure.
Yeah, at least we don't have sort of gun stockpiling. It's just toilet roll stockpiling here.
It's a little safer.
Whereas the French bidet is looking better than ever. So how do you think this is going to change society when all this eventually, please God, does pass?
One thing I've been seeing. So first of all, I think on a more personal level, what I hope is, I think it's been very trendy the last 5 or 6 years to hate on technology, to like hate on Facebook and all these companies. And it's funny because within 10 days, we are all Facebook and Google and Microsoft's biggest fans. Like, thank God for Amazon, because I mean, honestly, like Amazon might be the only thing preventing mass looting and rioting in a lot of these countries. So I think our relationship with technology, I think, is going to shift very quickly. And I think maybe this period will teach people, one of the things I've kind of been harping on the last year is I've been telling people, like, it's not the technology that's bad, it's how we're using it. Like, if you use it very mindlessly and just automatically consume anything that shows up on your newsfeed, then, like, yeah, it sucks. It's controlling you, not the other way around. But if you kind of take an active presence in choosing and defining, like, who you interact with, who you follow, who you talk to, it's incredible. So I'm hopeful that it will kind of reorient our relationship with technology, that will become actually a little bit more connected in our relationships. Like, it'll develop a little bit, it'll kind of return the cultural norms of phone calls and extended text conversations and, Zoom happy hours and things like that. I hope things like that kind of persist. On the business front, I've read in a couple places that large companies are saying that the Zoom meetings are going so well that they're going to keep them, even when everybody goes back to work. That they find them to be more productive and efficient than in-person meetings, which I find that super fascinating. I mean, we've all been in those meetings that probably should have been like a 5-minute call or even an email. And I think this is showing businesses a lot of inefficiencies and, like, how people spend time. And I just think more globally, not to get, like, all geopolitical, but I think this is only going to encourage anti-globalization sentiment. One of the big problems in the U.S., like everywhere, we have a shortage of masks here. And it turns out it's like we're manufacturing all of our masks in China. So it's like, well, that's stupid. Like, why would you do that? So part of what's happening in the U.S. and part of why things are so delayed is that we're rushing to get factories and production set up for, like, masks and hospital gear domestically. So I think it's just over the course of the next year or two, it's like a lot of supply chains are going to get pushed back within countries themselves, which is then makes us less reliant on each other, which, so I definitely think the world's going to look a lot different after this than before it. And, I just hope that this isn't something that doesn't trigger or portend, like, something even worse later. Like the Great Depression kind of, like, created the environment that enabled World War II to happen. I really hope that nothing like that happens with this.
Yeah, I'd not thought about that, but thank you for sowing that seed of geopolitical potential genocide in my brain. I was just looking for something else to worry about.
2.5 hours in bed tomorrow.
Right. Another pogrom, just what I needed. Thank you. Yeah. With a bit of luck, though, the handshake is going to be toast.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Let's just fist bump.
Yeah, well,
or elbow bump.
I mean, like, I've always felt it was a bit unhygienic, so that would be good to go.
Or maybe we should all import the Japanese bowing.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark, thanks for your time, but if, I've not really met you before, but if your 20% goes higher, I'm here for you. If you need to do some sort of basic CBT with me, consider me to be an online therapeutic resource.
All right, I appreciate that.
And if you see, when you're going down to the post, if you see anyone walking past who's like above a 3,
send them your way,
and has a passport, just tell them to get to JFK and wait.
Wow, it's getting that far. All right.
Yeah. I'll send you some wine in return, but
Sounds good, man.
That's good. Mark, it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah.
Stay
Me
well,
too.
my friends, and
Yeah.
it'd be love to connect on the other side and see how the world's looking.
Yeah, we should debrief when this is all over.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
See you
Thank
later.
you.